quickly, think about this. How would you live differently as a woman if you weren't so concerned about the male gaze? How would you dress? Would you dress super modest, or would you wear clothes that allow movement? How would you talk? Where would you go? What hobbies would be different? Would you go swimming more? Would you go to the beach more? Would you go for night walks in nature? Would you wear more makeup? Would you play with colors? Would you explore different kinds of dresses and different kinds of clothing? What would you do differently if you weren't so concerned about the male gaze? And this is on both angles, right? This is from the angle of I'm trying to please the male gaze, so I'm wearing these clothes be, because of the male gaze or because I want the male gaze. And then there's the opposite. I'm wearing these clothes because I want to be invisible to the male gaze, or I want to be less alluring, less attractive to the male gaze. Either way, we're living according to what somebody on the outside that we don't even know most times is going to think, or how they're going to perceive you, and so forth and so on. What would happen if you didn't live your life like that? What would happen if you lived your life according to how you felt? You wore what you felt you wanted to wear. Or you weren't concerned about the male gaze. Or maybe men aren't around, right? Men aren't, maybe if men weren't everywhere you went, right? If men weren't at the beach, at the gym, at in nature, if you didn't have to worry about that, right? How would you live differently? I considered that, and I felt like my life would be more expansive. I would go out more. I would dance more. I would definitely go to the pool and the beach, and I wouldn't wear heavy clothes. And my clothing would be, I would wear clothes that fit the task. If I wanted to move more, I would wear clothes that didn't constrict my movement. And those clothes may not be the traditionally modest clothing. I would still try to be somewhat modest, right? Um, but it would definitely be different. So when I considered that, it made me examine other things and go into other ideas of what my life could look like without the male gaze. And I want to play with that. So we're going to explore that also here on this channel. If you got a problem with that, that's okay, because there's other channels you can go to. All right. But yeah, that's something I want to explore. How would you dress? What would you do? Where would you go? How would you talk? How would you show up in the world as a woman if you weren't so concerned about the male gaze? About either way, about being modest or about being, whatever, being sexy. If you weren't worried about that and you just wanted to be you, like sometimes you wanted to dress this way and sometimes you wanted to dress that way. Sometimes, it makes sense to wear clothing that's flowy, and sometimes it makes sense to wear clothing that's more tight or more flexible or more what they call it, stretchy spandex or whatever. um Drop down in the comments and let me know what you think.